Ira.
Hey Maria, how are you?
Good. I heard you were here at Chelsea Piers hanging out, so I figured I'd ask you 21 questions.
I'm ready. I'm ducking out of the rain right now. It's not what I expected.
Yeah. So, tell us, what type of photographer are you?
I mostly do cultural documentary photography. You know, I photograph a lot overseas, and I like to photograph people in different cultures, especially in cultures where things are changing, so I could show the old and the new and the sort of conflict that people have in staying traditional or moving forward. That's
cool. And what got you started in photography?
Wow, I started way back in time when I was in high school, and it was great. You know, film days, and I had my own darkroom in my house that my dad built for me. We made a wooden sink and put the trays in there. It was a lot of fun.
That's so cool. And you're so used to traveling and being around different people. How did you manage this pandemic?
I haven't managed. I'm freaking out. Don't you see? I'm taking pictures of boats in the rain. I managed. I did make a few trips. I went in a year ago, May, in the midst of the pandemic. I had to photograph some things in southern Utah, but I was camping out, so I felt pretty safe. And then in January, I had a great photo shoot for a month in the Emirates, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, all 7 of the Emirates. So that international travel then really saved my sanity.
Sure. And so what was your first camera?
My first camera was a Yashica Mat. It was a twin lens reflex, and I called it a poor boy's Rolleiflex back then. And now that you mention it, last week I was in my camera store, and I was looking at some used Rolleiflexes. I think, you know, I want to sort of actually have a Rolleiflex one day and shoot film with it. Sort of brings me back to my childhood, and I'll figure out what I was missing with the Yashica Mat.
Perfect. That's awesome. And what's your go-to camera and lens now?
Now it's the new Sony A1.
Oh yeah.
Incredible camera, and my typical walking around lens is either the 24-105 or the 24-70 G Master. Just depends on what the situation is.
Sure. And so you do a lot of photography for National Geographic, and you're also a Sony Artisan, right?
Yeah, I love it. I've got 2 great groups of people, 2 different places where I could talk to other photographers about what they're doing and discuss our work. And of course, everyone loves discussing the toys we need for doing the work.
And what does being a part of those communities and just organizations mean to you?
It means a lot, because I really feel as a photographer, it's hard to be out there by yourself. You need community. You need to be able to discuss your work. You need to talk to people about bad times when you're feeling like you're not hitting it right, or if something good happens, you need to share it with people. So community is critical, and when I do my workshops and I get people in from smaller towns, they're isolated from photography, and I tell them you need to find a camera club or something where you could really feel the photo love.
Absolutely, for sure. And so one of my favorite things about your work is how you capture people and even animals candidly. And it really makes me feel like I'm even there. How did you master capturing this type of style and your own style?
Well, I don't do that much animals. I'm not that much of a wildlife photographer, but occasionally the situation presents itself. People, I do a lot of people, and it takes a lot of patience with animals or with people. You really need to spend time with people. You need to find the right environment, because people alone don't tell a story. I always look for people in some environment that connects the people and the story.
Absolutely. And so you're also a baseball lover and photographer, right?
Oh, I love baseball, yeah.
Tell me about Cuba Loves Baseball.
A few years back, I was over in Cuba, one of many trips I've done, working on just a general project, and I noticed that baseball was so much a part of their community. And I thought, you know, baseball here in Cuba reminds me of baseball when I was a kid growing up. It's still very pure. It's not as commercial. It's not as organized. And I decided it would be a terrific project to do a story on Cuba's love of baseball. And it wasn't so much about the action of the sport. It was a look at how baseball defines and illustrates the Cuban culture.
That's awesome. And so you photograph portraits, sports, landscape, and occasionally wildlife. Which is your favorite?
I like doing people the most because I really like the interaction I get with people and the learning experience. You learn about people, you learn about their culture, and it makes you more aware of, you know, your own culture or my own culture and what, you know, what we have, what I have, what other people do. It's just so enriching. I think it's the favorite part of my job is just meeting people, and my camera is just sort of a tool and conduit that I use to work my way in with them.
For sure. And so do you have any projects you're working on or coming up?
I'm finishing up a project that I've been working on my mother. So while I was here with nothing to do during the pandemic, I decided to do a story about my mother because my mother's over 100 years old.
Wow.
And she still owns her shop in Brooklyn.
Wow.
And goes to work 6 days a week. So I wanted to do something about, you know, a 100-year-old woman working, especially and dealing with and use, you know, the pandemic, how she's going to deal with the pandemic. So I've been working a lot with her.
That's awesome.
Which is awesome, but when you're with your mom too much, it's not, you know, other issues happen.
Oh, for sure. And so switching it up a little bit, what are some tips for someone who is looking to photograph strangers, but in a respectful way?
That's always a fear of new photographers. Oh my God, how am I going to approach people? I think that what you will do, what I do, is you don't go in with a lot of equipment. It intimidates people. You go in with a small amount of equipment. So when you photograph people, you don't want to be aggressive coming in with all the equipment. You want to be very opening and sometimes play it like you're a little dumb. You want people to almost take pity on you. And then they'll work with you more. The other thing is to know a few words in their local language. It shows some respect if you can say a few things in their language. And the other thing that really works, it's complicated to explain, but I'll give it a shot, is that when you approach a couple of people and they're talking, you're suddenly invading their space. For me, what I do is I like to find a really good background that helps tell the story of where I am, and then wait for people to move into that space. So psychologically, people see me standing or sitting around somewhere with cameras, and if they walk in, they know what they're walking into, as opposed to me barging in on them into their space. So I don't know if this is true or not, but it seems to work.
Right, yeah, that's awesome. So, what has been one of the coolest shoots you've been on?
Oh God, I've been on so many great shoots. When I go to Southeast Asian countries, it's a great photographic experience because the people are fantastic, the food is fantastic, and the culture is different. So it's somewhat easier to make pictures that are surprises.
Absolutely. And what has been one of the most challenging shoots?
Oh, that's easy. One of my first assignments for the Nat Geo was going to the North Pole with a Japanese explorer by dog sled.
Whoa.
And I was not the kid that grew up in the mountains of Colorado or Wyoming. I grew up in Brooklyn. So survival, cold weather was definitely not part of my education.
Wow.
But it changed my life. You know, I was about 25 years old then, and I learned survival. I was living with in tents and huts with a few Japanese that didn't speak English, so I learned about dealing with people and approaching people and about other people's cultures. So I think it was an extremely challenging shoot. It was minus 40, minus 50 degree temperatures, but I learned so much that I think helped me in my future in photography.
Absolutely. That's so cool. And you've traveled to many different places. Which has been your favorite?
Everyone wants to know, what's your favorite place? And the answer I usually say is, the last place I've been to is my favorite place.
Yeah.
But I just have, so many favorite places. Even bad places, after you leave them, become favorite places because you've gone through challenges there and you've made pictures there. So it's not necessarily going to Hawaii and laying on the beach. It's what you get out of it psychologically, photographically, and sort of the spiritual vibe you pick up as a photographer from every different place.
Sure. Favorite baseball team to watch and favorite baseball team to photograph?
Here you go, the New York Yankees, my team. I love them. When I come home, when I've been traveling a lot, it's great to go to a game, watch it on TV. Last year, of course, there were no games available, so I'm looking forward to going to more games this year.
That's great. And so our mutual friend and sports photographer, Jean Fruth, heard that we were interviewing you, so she wanted to throw in a question.
All right, let's have it.
So she said, you hit it out of the park with your book, and if you had one night in Havana and had to choose, would it be going to see the Industriales play at Estadio Latinoamericano or go to see Buena Vista Social Club while drinking mojitos?
Well, when you go to the game in Cuba, they don't allow beer or drinks in the game. So
interesting.
It's a little problem there, but I'd be going to the game for sure, and I'd go to the Buena Vista Social Club event after the game.
Perfect. Favorite image you've captured, or maybe a couple if you can't choose?
I think as a photographer, you have many photos you like, but there are some images that I keep going back to over the last few years. I have a photo of some monks in Luang Prabang, Laos, at a nighttime ceremony, and one's doing a selfie, but he's got the camera turned around so you could see the screen, and I could see him on the screen, so that's a favorite. There's a picture in Mongolia from the Nadam Games of a horseman coming right at me, and
wow.
He's leaning off the horse to pick something up off the ground. So that's a nice action image I've got. And for scenic landscapes, there's a really special picture I took in Bagan in Myanmar, sunrise of the temples and tourist balloons in the sky going through the sun. And for me, it's an example of the balance of their culture, of keeping the traditions that the old temples show and having to integrate tourism, for their economy.
And if you weren't a photographer, what would you be?
Well, my mom would like me to be a doctor still. I don't know if there's any time. I probably wouldn't have minded going into medicine and helping people and traveling through medicine, but I don't see my life as other than being a photographer. It's not only my job, my work, it's who I am, what I do. Everything in my life is involved with taking pictures, looking at pictures, mentoring students, helping other photographers out. Wow, it's,
There's no plan B.
Yeah, there is no plan B at the moment.
And what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't overthink the photo you're trying to do. Let things happen naturally and have fun doing it. I think in the beginning when I was starting out, especially at the National Geographic, I was just so conscious of what I was doing and overthinking things and trying to second guess that I wasn't making good pictures and I wasn't having fun. So I sort of backed off, and still, anybody that's a photographer has to be a little obsessive compulsive. There's a lot going on. But I tried since back in those days just to, loosen up a little bit, and if I have a good time while I'm shooting the photos, I think it shows itself in the photos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And aside from your camera and lens, what's your favorite piece of gear?
Camera and lens. Wow. Favorite piece of gear would be probably a Leatherman tool or some sort of knife that, I know I could turn to when something's broken, something needs to be fixed, or, I need to cut open a mango.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, I gotta have the right stuff.
Cool. And if there were to be a movie about your life, who would play you?
Clint Eastwood, of course, right?
Perfect. And last question, who should we interview next?
Well, there's one of the Sony Alpha female photographers, Shravya Kag. She's from India. She's been in the US for a while, and she's been working on a great project on following the 7 train through Queens and all the different ethnic neighborhoods.
Wow, that's really cool. So we'll definitely call her up. And thank you so much. I'll let you get back to photographing the boats.
Yeah, and I think it's, whoa, the rain stopped.
Perfect.
Just in time.
Alrighty, see ya.